Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve. In this video, we're going to draw some very elegant but super simple floral arrangements in Procreate. So open up the app, create a new canvas, and let's start drawing. You can use whatever brush that you want to follow along this tutorial. I'm personally going to be using the brushes from my brand new gouache brush set, as well as the pre-textured file that comes with it. If you want to check it out, I will link it in the description below, along with a promo code just for you guys. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of roughly sketch where everything's going to be. So create a new layer and pick a sketching brush. If you have the gouache brush set, pick the sketching pencil right here. So for that step, I just draw like round shapes where the flowers will be, as well as kind of pointy shapes to show where the leaves are. And you can be super creative at this point. You can draw just a few simple flowers, or you could go and create a whole entire bouquet. You can even draw a wreath or like a border. That's totally up to you. And this sketch doesn't need to be fancy at all. You just want an idea of where everything is kind of going to be. So it can be as simple as that. Once that is done, you're going to change the blending mode of this layer to multiply by clicking on the N here and just picking multiply, which is going to be the first one. We're then going to color in the flowers on a different layer, so go ahead and create a new layer. And we're going to put that layer below the sketch layer. And to do that, you just click on it and drag it below it. If you have the gouache brush set, pick the soft round brush, and you can pick whatever color you want for your flowers. In this case, I'm going to go with pink peonies. And very simply, you're just going to color in the same round type of shade that we had first. And you can add some petals that are just kind of peeking out the main shape, just like this. I'm going to create another layer that you're going to put below this first one. And you're going to pick a slightly darker shade that you had than your first flower. And you're going to do the same thing, meaning we're just going to fill in the shape that we outlined in the sketch. You can add some extra petals, just like this. So repeat this step how many times that you need, depending on how many flowers that you have. You can also have some flower buds, which would just be small ellipses instead of full-blown flowers. Once we have that, we're going to give just a little bit more dimension to the flowers by adding just a few details. And at this point, you can merge two layers together. If you have the gouache brush set, go ahead and select the wet streak brush and stay with your color that you use for your secondary flower. All we're going to do at this point is we're just going to add some curved lines that are going to give the idea of petals. So super simple, almost like in a broken spiral type of pattern. And that's it. We're going to do the same thing on the other flowers that we have with a slightly darker color this time. So again, you can repeat this step with how many flowers that you have in your own arrangement. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a darker center to our peonies. And for this, I like to use a really dark saturated brown, as well as the dry brush from the gouache brush set. And all you're going to do is literally just kind of draw a thick line in the middle. And that's it. So now that our flowers are done, we can move on to the leaves. And I always like to mix in a few types of leaves. So we're going to start by drawing some really thin leaves. And to do that, we're going to create a new layer again that we're going to put below the flowers. You're going to pick a nice bright green for this, as well as the clean round brush if you have the gouache brush set. And you can zoom in. And just like for the flowers, all you have to do as the step is fill in the rough sketch that we created first for the inside of the leaf, and then you're going to draw one line for the stem. So feel free to pause the video at this point, and I'm going to meet you at the next step, which is going to be creating secondary leaves. So now that we have our first set of leaves, we're going to create a new layer, once again, that we're going to put below the first set of leaf here. And we're going to pick a slightly different green. I like to go with a green that is a bit more blue, like you can see here, but keep the same brush and the same size. And I like to add leaves that are just a bit different. So in this case, I'm drawing leaves that are a bit rounder and I don't necessarily have a stem like the first ones. And you're again just filling the sketch that you created first. And feel free to add leaves that were not necessarily in your sketch at first if you see that it will look good now that there's their color. Speaking of the sketch, we're going to hide the sketch layer now that we have most of the things mapped out. And to do that, you just click on this check mark here. And we can kind of see a bit more clearly what we did. And we can see that maybe we missed a few spots, at least I did. So I'm just going to go back and connect the leaves. Oops. And connect the leaves that were not connected. But I'm going to leave this like open space because it will look good in the end. And I notice here that I didn't connect this flower bud to anything, so I'm just gonna draw a stem, just like this. We're now going to use some sort of a magic trick to add some texture or color variation to our leaf, and that magic trick is called alpha lock. And if you've never used alpha lock before, you're in for a treat. The way to activate it basically is you start by opening your layer panel, and you're just going to tap on a layer that's already selected and select alpha lock here. And you're going to see that there's some sort of a checkered pattern that appears behind your shape. So you're going to do that on both of your leaf layers. And what alpha lock does basically is everything that you draw on that layer when alpha lock is activated is going to stay within the color that was already on the layer when you activated alpha lock. So you can see here, if I kind of split my leaf in two different colors, it just stays within the shape that I created at first. So I don't have to be super careful or I don't have to erase anything. It's just magic. So as you can see, what we're doing now is we're just adding a secondary color to 1/2 of every leaf. So you can do that on your own piece. And we're going to do the same thing on our secondary set of leaf. So changing the layer and picking a different color. You're just going to once again add a secondary color to 1/2 of your leaf. At this point, you can add some extra elements. If we look at the example that we had at first, if I put it on top, you can see that I had some like round berry type of stuff. So you can totally add that too. I suggest that you create a new layer and put it below everything. And select any color that you want your extra elements to be. And draw them with the same brush that you use to create your leaves. So I'm just going to draw some little branches with berry type of stuff here. But you can really go crazy and draw whatever you want. You could draw more leaves, you could draw different flowers. That's really totally up to you. But I like sticking with just very simple little berries like this. So we're now at the point where we can add some details as well as the really elegant like outlines that we had in the example here. And to do that, we're going to go back on the main flower layer and pick a really pale color, almost white, that is a similar hue to your flower, as well as a really rough brush. If you have the gouache set, pick the dry brush here. You're just going to add some little circles around the dark spot that you have in the middle of the flower, and you can do that on all the flowers that you have. We're also going to add some details on some of the leaves. I like to add them on the rounder leaves because it gets too busy if I do it on the really thin and pointy leaves. So go pick the leaf layer of your choice, as well as a really dark green color and a fairly clean brush. And on the darker half of the leaf, you're going to add some diagonal lines that connect with the center line. And you can also highlight the center line actually. So just diagonal lines. And I really like to keep it on just one side. It looks super cool, in my opinion, at least. The last thing we have to do now is to add the really elegant outlines that we had in the example. And to do that, you guessed it, we're going to create a new layer that we're going to put below everything. And we're going to select the same color that we use for the dark center of the flowers here, as well as, again, a really clean brush. If you have the gouache set, pick the clean round brush. And you're going to select a fairly small size. And all you're going to do is you're going to outline some leaves just like we did in the sketch, but this time we're going to actually keep them as outlines and not color them in. I recommend that you stick to just one shape of leaf for this because it will look way better in the end. So go ahead and add as many as you want. And you can see that it adds this really cool modern element to the piece. So there you go, you created your own floral arrangement in Procreate, and I would love to see the results, so make sure to share it with me either on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have an idea for a tutorial you would like to see, comment below. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe because I put out new videos every week.